Why is it so important to do a home inspection before you purchase a home? We're going to tell you.
Welcome to Married in Real Estate. I'm Matthew Dalke.
And I'm Karen Dalke. We have a top performing team south of Atlanta. And today we're going to be deep diving into the home inspection process and why we always recommend that our buyers get a home inspection while they're purchasing a home.
After searching hard to find your dream home at the ideal price, I'm sure you're ready to just rush through due diligence period and move into the house. But this time is so important for you to find any underlying issues or repairs before you move along with the purchase.
So that way, if something crazy does come up in the inspection, we have plenty of time to negotiate repairs or closing costs. And if worse comes to worse, you still have the time to terminate with no loss of earnest money.
And we are so fortunate today to have our favorite home inspector, Eric Eaglestad, with Home Scan Inspections to walk through this house. That way you get a sneak peek of what this process actually looks like and what's important for you to look for in an inspection. And we're actually going to introduce you to Eric now. Let me look. Oh, Eric, you're right here. Hey buddy, how are you?
How are you?
This is Eric, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself and his company.
My name is Eric Eaglestad. I'm the owner of HomeScan Home Inspections. I moved here in 2015. Prior to that, I was prior military. I spent 24 years in the active duty Army. The good thing about being military and a veteran is I always take care of my veterans, first responders. Call me and I will definitely give you a discount. I'm originally from Washington State. So we moved here in 2015. I started working in home inspections. After a couple of years, I decided I wanted to start my own home inspection company. Home inspections are really important. After being a buyer and seller myself, I realized that a small fee for a home inspection can save you a lot of money down the road.
So Eric, for all of our buyers out there who maybe haven't had an inspection, can you explain a little bit to them how you do your inspection reports and maybe in what order?
So the first thing I do when I enter a house is I turn all the lights on, and then I'm going to turn all the bathroom exhaust fans on, because when I eventually go outside, I want to make sure that they are exhausting outside. So I also take pictures of the thermostats so I know where their location is, and then that way I can adjust the temperature for that day. And then once I get everything on, I go outside and start my inspection. Anytime we have a temperature over 80 degrees, it's recommended we don't test the heat in the house, especially if it's an electric unit. Sometimes the gas units we can run for a few minutes, at least to get to see if it's running. When we get below 60 degrees, we can't run the AC systems because we could damage the units, and we don't want to do that for the homeowner or the potential buyer. So first thing I do is I notate that the thermostat is set on 75 degrees cool. What I always do is I drop it 20 degrees, so I always remember to set the thermostat back to where the homeowners have it.
That would be a good thing. I think I would probably, as being a listing agent, I'd probably get a mouthful if the seller came back at 55 degrees.
Correct. So now I'm going to adjust the thermostat. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is start on the outside, do the complete exterior of the house from top down, and I'm also going to do the roof at this time.
Do you use a drone for the roof?
Yes, I do. One thing about my company is I have a roofer that will come to most of my inspections, and he'll do a free roof inspection. What I like about him is he does a video while he's up there and talks about all things he saw, so you can see it in person, and he sends it to you and the realtor, and then he'll send you an estimate for repairs. Now we want to make sure that there's good granule material on the shingles and that we have good life left, and then make sure if there's anything that penetrates the roof, we want to make sure it's sealed, right?
And guys, the roof is probably one of the most expensive things to replace. So the fact that Eric has a roofer to come out to is just really an amazing thing. And then when you get done with the roof, what do you look for after that?
Before I get off, I'm always checking the gutters as well. Make sure there's no debris. The slope of the gutters, usually we can tell from the ground. It's kind of hard to tell from the roof itself, but we can see if it's holding water or if there's stuff in it too. We want to make sure the siding's attached correctly, if we have any wood rot. And then we're working our way back 6 feet from the house, which includes the grading. We want to make sure all the grading on all four sides is away from the house. And I have a little diagram or an explanation in my report I put in there for homeowners for a tip.
And Eric, what would you say is the most common siding on a house that you see?
So around here in Georgia, depending on the year, is a lot of it's hardy plank or the fiber cement. A lot of times people will have a brick front or something like that, and then they'll have the hardy plank siding around the other three sides, or it'll be all four sides.
Okay, and from a realtor standpoint, we usually see brick finishes being usually the most expensive, followed by concrete siding. And then the older homes have wood siding, which a lot of them start to deteriorate over time. So maintenance-wise, they're a little more expensive, right?
Correct, and then stucco as well.
Stucco.
Stucco's a good one too. If you know, the big thing with stucco, everybody's kind of afraid of it, but stucco's a good siding as long as we don't have big cracks in it or stuff like that. And then you can see it from standing on the side if it's bulging out or we think there's water, and you can press on it. And if that's the case, then we probably need to get a stucco guide out there to evaluate it.
And some of you have heard real versus synthetic stucco. Are you able to tell the difference when you do your test?
Yeah, most of the homes here, if it's the main house, is usually the real stucco. and then the trim is the IFAS or the fake stucco. We can run our fingers and hands on it, and usually you can tell. Obviously, the true test is from a stucco expert, right? But we can usually tell that the fake stuff from the real stuff. So when we're going down the sides of the house, if you have gas, we have a gas meter, so we're gonna look at that. We're gonna look at your AC units. You know, sometimes you have 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. We're gonna look at your AC units. We're gonna get the data plates off those, make sure they're level, because we turn the air down, remember, we're gonna make sure they're running right, the fans aren't hitting, and we don't have a bunch of clanky, noisy stuff going on. We're gonna look at your electrical service meter. Is it an overhead or is it underground power? We're gonna list that in your report, and then usually that's where the main amp breaker is, and then we gotta make sure it's grounded correctly to the house, right? We wanna make sure that ground wire is connected to the 8-foot rod. It's supposed to be in the earth, to make sure our house is grounded correctly. Sometimes we do find those disconnected or broke.
And then we also see vegetation, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want vegetation touching your house. Critters use those to climb on and get in your house.
But the termite inspectors aren't going to be able to inspect the whole side of your house if the vegetation's against it, because they're not going to walk through that. And if we can't see everything, then there may be a crack that we may not be able to see during an inspection. But that's the big ticket items that we're going to be looking for, and the safety things we need to look for in a house.
It's all about saving you money and keeping you safe.
Okay, now we're going to go upstairs and check the outlets, the windows, and see what else is up there.
Come join us. Now, Eric, you brought us upstairs first to the top floor. Why is that?
Very good question. So I like to start on the second floor, but I like to check top down. So after we're done running water, when it drains, which is going to drain below us, when I'm on the first floor, I can use my thermal imager to check for leaks in the ceilings that we may not see with our naked eye.
That makes perfect sense. Let's get going.
So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to check and make sure the sink holds water. While I'm doing that, I'm also checking to make sure hot's on the hot side and cold's on the cold side, and that there's no leaks under the sink below. So one important thing we need to look for around Peachtree City area or the older homes is polybutylene piping, which is a defective pipe, and some insurance companies will not insure you if you have polybutylene.
Now, fortunately, Eric, this home does not have polybutylene.
It does not.
That is awesome, because we have seen some major bills for that.
Yes.
Without hiring a home inspector, most buyers would have no idea if they had polybutylene. So you've just saved them a lot of money.
I sure have. The next thing I'm going to do while I'm in the bathroom, I'm going to check the toilet. The thing we're going to check to make sure it's bolted correctly to the ground, it's not loose. Otherwise, that flange underneath there can leak on the ceiling below.
Nobody wants a leaky flange.
We're going to flush it. We're going to check for leaks.
I think moisture in the bathroom is a real concern for homeowners. Are we looking at stuff like what, fungal growth?
Yeah, we can potentially have fungal growth if the fans are not working or if they're dirty. A good hack for you to test your own bathroom exhaust vent is to take a piece of toilet paper, hold it up to the fan while it's going, to make sure the toilet paper stays to the vent.
Oh, that's a great idea.
See how it sticks there? That's how we know it's working. The final thing we're going to test in the bathroom is the bathtub and the shower, if it has both items. So we're going to close the drain stop. We're going to run the hot water. We're going to run the cold water, make sure hot and cold is on the right side. And we're going to fill the bathtub up to make sure it holds water. Okay, now we're at a window. So first thing we're going to do is unlock the window. We're going to raise the window all the way up and make sure it holds an up position. So that way if you have to escape out the window, it's not going to come crashing down on you. And then we're also, this is a nice window, it has a window tilt. So we check the window tilt and make sure it opens up. You can clean your window, take your screens out. And then we shut it, lock it, and make sure it's locked. All inspectors have an outlet tester. We also have a lot of codes here because we're going to get a lot of different color combinations if the outlet's not wired correctly. So the first thing we're going to do is put our tester in there, make sure the outlet is not loose, and then we check for the color combination. If it's not wired correctly, then we were going to notate that in the report to have an electrician come by and look at it or repair it. When you move in, you don't have to worry about your computers, laptops, and cell phones not charging.
Okay, great. Now what's next?
So now I'm going to check the air samples to make sure we have the correct air samples since we turned the air down.
Should we head downstairs for that?
Let's do it.
Matthew's waiting for us.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to test the AC. And I have a thermal imager. I bought a FLIR thermal imager.
You guys, those are the coolest tools.
We're going to find the return vent in the house. We're going to get a temperature reading and then check the supply vent. We want 12 to 15 degrees differential. So here's the picture of my hand. You can see my palm is really hot. And I can adjust it from hot to cold. So it's going to pick up. So it's showing, 95 degrees or so is my temperature in my palm. So since we're going to do AC, I'm going to put it on cold. And right now it's showing 74.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So we need to have 12 to 15 degrees colder when we go to the supply vent. And it's showing 71.8 degrees, 71.4, it's fluctuating. So as of right now, we only have about a 4-degree differential. So the AC system is not working correctly. We'd have to call an HVAC company to come out and service the unit.
These are always like, when we get those, we know, this is going to be a tough one to negotiate because for a buyer, that's so important, especially in the summer, to have the AC working correctly. But from a seller's standpoint, most sellers have services on their HVACs. They usually always think they're working properly, don't they?
Correct.
Now, what would be next on your inspection report?
Now we're gonna check the ceiling because we ran water above us. We wanna see if anything leaked on the ceiling below. So we're gonna take our thermal imager and we're gonna put it on the ceiling and we're gonna look for any temperature differentials. If we find a dark blue spot, then we're gonna get our moisture meter out and test that spot to see how active the water is.
Now, Eric, can you sometimes have leaks without seeing spots in the ceiling?
Yes, and that's why it's so important that home inspectors use a thermal imager like this one or another one so you can see it, because sometimes with our naked eye we cannot see leaks that just happened or occurred.
So this is another great reason to have an awesome inspector, look for things like that. So now when we're in the kitchen, Eric, I bet there's a lot of things you check in the kitchen.
The two things I start first in the kitchen are the dishwasher and the oven, because they take a long time to either heat up or run. I also use my thermal imager while it's running and afterwards to check it to see if there's any leak that I can't see underneath. So now we're at the sink. Typically we like the hot water to be pushed away from us. That way, if it's towards us and we turn it on and a little kid turns it on and it's really hot water, they can scald their hands, right? So, the best option is to have the hot water that's pushing away from us. And then this one has a garbage disposal. So we're gonna run the garbage disposal as well to make sure that there's no loud noises, there's no debris, and then check it underneath while it's running and make sure there's no leaks. We're about 110, 111 degrees. All right, now that we've tested the hot water, we typically like to see 120 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
If a buyer sees that the temperature is like 100 or 140, is that an easy fix?
It is a very easy fix. On this house, which we'll see later, this is a tankless water heater, and actually the temperature settings are right there on it, so they can bump it up or bump it down as needed.
So for all you people that love hot showers, easy fix.
One of the things we're gonna test is the light and the exhaust fan underneath, and then we're gonna test the microwave with our little microwave tester, and it should heat up red if it warms up and it cooks right.
All of this stuff may seem like little things, but every single issue with the house after you close is now your issue. That's why we want to make sure everything is working perfectly for you, because once you move in, there are just a lot of other additional costs. So let's not have to replace the microwave. Eric, that is so cool. I don't think I've ever seen this test.
Yeah, back in the day, we used to have to put water in a mug and heat it up and then take a temperature reading of the water. So this expedites the process really fast.
We love technology.
Anything 6 feet within a water source has to be GFCI protected.
You talked about GFCI. What does that stand for?
Sure, good question. So ground fault circuit interrupter. So what happens is when this outlet trips, it automatically trips right here at the outlet instead of at the panel. So if you were gonna drop something in the sink, it was plugged in, it would shut off immediately and cut the power. So I tell everybody GFCIs protect us, the humans. Okay, so what we're gonna do, which we haven't explained about on our tester, is there's a red button up here at the top, and this sends a fault to the outlet, like there's an appliance plugged into it, and we wanna make sure it kills the power, and then we have no power in our lights. So we're gonna plug it in, trip, and as we see, we have no power. So that means this outlet is working correctly, the power tripped, so if something was in the sink and we dropped it while the water's running, now we're protected.
That is so dang cool. See, you guys, like a simple, easy test can save your lives.
Eric, it looks like we found the water heater. This one looks a little bit different. Why is that?
This is a tankless water heater made by Renai right here in Peachtree City. We tested the water at 110 earlier today, and so this is exactly where you push the button, up or down, and we have set the water temperature to 120 degrees for the homeowner.
What's really great too is that a home inspection doesn't only show you potential problems with the home. A home inspector can also give you just good basic information so that when you move in, you know where everything is.
This is an upgraded water heater for this house. If we do not have this tankless water heater, we have the cylinder type, like Karen said. There's a couple things we need to look for. Depends if it's electric or if it's gas. If it is gas, it's gonna have a flue pipe, okay? And that's where the carbon monoxide escapes our house. And we've got to make sure there's no rust, how close the pipes are to the flue pipe, because the flue pipes get hot. We check the body of the water heater, make sure there's no cracks, no rust, no dripping. One of the most important things I always tell you when you leave a home inspection, where's the main water cutoff to your entire house? So that way you can shut it off in case you have an emergency. So in this case, it's right here next to the tankless water heater, easy to get at. So I make a big deal out of this in my inspection reports and if you're with me at the inspection.
When you work with Dalke Home Group, we always like to have a part of the inspection as well. Our buyer's agents pop in at least for the summary part so that they know what is going on for our home buyers. Now that we know everything there is to know about water heaters, what else should we take a look at while we're out here in the garage?
Right, so we have the electrical panel over there, so we're gonna check that, and we're also gonna check the garage doors. So one of the most important things we look at first is the brand. There are some bad electrical panels out there, Federal Pacific and now Challenger panels. With those two types of panels, we could have fires, which we don't want in the house. You always want to have an electrician come out and verify that there's no issues, or if there's an issue, because at that point they can tell you how much it's going to cost to repair or replace the panel if we have to. As you can see here, we have actually open slots as well, so you can add other stuff if you want to add some more electricity, a hot tub, a sauna, whatever you want for your house. Okay, now we've opened the electrical panel up, we've exposed the wires, and you want to go down and make sure there's no double tap wires and that none of the wires are scorched or burned. As you can see, we have ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs. We're going to test them. So we're going to test this, make sure it trips, and reset it. Okay, we're going to push the next one down. And as you can see, it's not tripping or resetting. So this breaker right here is bad. These breakers are cheap. You can buy these breakers at your local hardware store.
An important thing to note about some of those faulty panels that we see, or some of those older panels, those are still not deal breakers.
No.
A lot of times for a couple $1,000s, we would have an electrician come in, of course, and look, but for about a couple $1,000s, you can usually take care of a lot of those issues and continue on with the sale.
First thing I'm going to look at before I open the garage doors is to make sure the springs are tight and there's not any cracks or breaks in them, and to make sure we have our safety emergency cord. That way if the power goes out, you can pull this to open the garage door. So one of the safety features we have with the garage door is the reverse safety sensor. Located on the outsides of the garage door, they should be about 6 inches high or less. So if a dog or child goes through your garage door, we want to make sure the sensor trips it in case the garage door is coming down. As you can see, my foot was a test dummy for your safety.
Who doesn't love a home with a fireplace? This one has a great gas fireplace. What should we be looking for here?
If it's a typical wood burning fireplace with refractory panels, which looks like the fake bricks, we got to make sure there's no cracks or breaks in them. That's what reflects the heat off the outside of the fireplace back into the house. Also, we got to make sure the dampener opens and closes if it has a flue pipe type chimney, because that's where the carbon dioxide escapes. And then there's safety tips like a dampener clamp we can recommend for buyers, that they clamp on the dampener. That way, if someone was to open the gas valve, accidentally leave it open, the gas will still escape out our flue pipe.
Those darn damper clamps. We see that on almost every inspection report. The good news is they're fairly inexpensive to replace.
Correct. And it's just a tip for safety reasons. The fireplace was not required to have them.
And that is something that the buyers would never know about if Eric didn't take a look.
So Eric, now probably one of the most important parts too that most buyers don't see is the attic. Let's talk about that.
There's lots of things. Is there any cracks in the framing? Is there any broken studs? Is there any gaps or holes that are allowing water in or vermin in? Make sure we have ventilation. And then as I work my way down, we're checking the insulation volume. And if we have furnaces or any other appliances in there, we're going to check those as well.
And as we've said in a few videos before, you never want bats in an attic. That's a very expensive ordeal, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And although bats in an attic kind of sound funny and it probably doesn't happen too often, although we are in Georgia, you can have all sorts of other critters or insects or, spiders, ants, anything that could infiltrate into the house and cause just more of a headache and more money for you after the fact.
If you have a lot of gaps or holes, if the house isn't very clean, the food chain, if we start getting squirrels or mice, the snakes are going to chase them into the attic. And I have seen several snakes in attics, unfortunately, a lot of snake skins, so they can get up our siding and all those gaps. So we want to make sure all those gaps are sealed off and make sure we keep all that vermin out of our attic.
Yeah, let's keep those out. Eric, thank you again so much for joining us and teaching us so much about the home inspection process. Since we've had a relationship with you, I feel like we've learned so much about this, and we've been able to really help look out for our clients.
Thank you so much for letting me do this and share a little bit about my career, my job, what I do, and I'm here for you to make sure you have a good investment.
Make sure you comment down below with any questions you might have about home inspections. Even if you don't have the great fortune to work with Dalke Home Group, you can always still work with Eric. He'll be looking for the comments and questions below.
My information is on the screen, so please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. I get questions a lot about my pricing. Pricing depends on square foot, if we're on a slab, a basement, or crawl space. But typically, I'm from $375 to $425. Some of the other things we can do is a radon test. I get questions about that a lot. Radon test is $175 on top of your home inspection. A radon test measures the gas that's coming from the ground up and that we can't smell. It's the second leading cause of cancer in non-smokers. So it's very important to get this test if you have a basement or crawl space, and some people do it with a slab house as well. Another thing we can do is the indoor air quality test, or mold test as people call it. And that ranges from $375 on up. It's an expensive test, but if you have allergies or you have any concerns with mold or suspect fungal growth or anything like that, we can definitely help you out there as well. And the good thing about me is I can bring a roofer out for free if we need it, and my termite company will also do a free termite inspection if you let me know ahead of time.
Eric, what if somebody has a swimming pool? What should we do in that case?
Good question. I have a swimming pool myself, but I recommend that you hire a pool inspector to come out because they know so much more than we do as home inspectors.
Eric, thanks again for joining us. What a valuable partner you are in our business. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
No matter how long we sell real estate, I always learn something new at every inspection.
If you're paying full price or even over list price for a home, sometimes another great thing once you get the inspection done, it's just another negotiating tool. And if there are any inspection related issues, we can either ask for the repairs or we can maybe even ask for some closing costs. So that goes back in your pocket. After closing, you'd get that money and then you can hire your own people and make your own repairs.
That's right, and that's why it's so important to have a trusted agent on your side to help handle those issues, to negotiate those issues, and to take care of those findings on your behalf. If you want to see more videos about life and real estate south of Atlanta, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video.
Let us know what other topics you'd like to discuss or other videos you'd like us to make. And remember, every move counts. And remember, what happened?
Okay, listen,
All right,
I'm sorry.
ready?
Okay, we're
Okay.
here. Yeah,
Do you snort?
maybe.
Every move counts.
I wasn't ready for that.
Oh, I can't point at your. Never mind. I'm like, every move counts. We can't do that. Yeah.
Inappropriate.
No, it's not. I could do every move counts. Yeah. No.
Care of those findings.
Subscribe is to the side. isn't it?
Subscribe.
Subscribe is below
Oh, okay.
on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Subscribe and
And
like this video.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I totally have it.
You'd like us to make
let us know
she
what
just said
other
it before moving on with the
before following
to expect
Wait,
on
look
home
over
inspection.
You're like looking at the camera.
You're mad. I'm not used to her being back behind the camera.
As I'm down here looking for sinks, he wants you to slap your forehead.
Okay. You really want me to slap my tongue?
Yeah. Well, I put the laser on and the cats like to chase it.
Oh yeah. See, he also loves playing with your animals too.